Hey there, this is Natalie, and we now have the cover art for volume 26 of the ReZero light novel series, and this means we have a first look at the official designs of Mizelda and Uta Carter, as well as my husbando Vincent Valacchia getting his own cover. We'll probably get looks at some of the artwork from inside the light novel soon, where we should get to see other new characters from Arc 7, like Todd and Jamal, as well as some new art of Rem, Louis Arneb, and of course Subaru. But for now, I just wanted to make a quick video talking about the cover. Naturally, there will be spoilers for Arc 7 from so far in the web novel, otherwise I can't talk about who the featured characters are, so you have been warned. Now, Vincent looks much the same as he does in X4, where they've opted to show him in his Emperor state, on the throne looking all imperious, rather than showing him in the actual situation he is in this part of Arc 7, where he'd look a lot more dishevelled and like he'd been roughing it for a while. His throne here is completely symbolic of what Arc 7 is going to be about, because obviously he didn't bring his throne out to the jungle with him, and the Vincent Subaru meets in this part of the story no longer has his throne anyway, following a coup in the Valacchian Empire. Personally, I stan this character and I love his design, but I did see an interesting point on Twitter from Satawi, who is a great account to follow for ReZero fan art, as well as for their discussion on the novel and anime in general, where Satawi said that Vincent is supposed to strike fear into people, but he's drawn to look like just another smug pretty boy. I mean, he does look like a smug pretty boy, but I really think this is down to the way Tappei has a tendency to describe characters more in the way they affect people than how they actually look. I have a whole video I'm working on about this with regards to Pandora, and to a lesser extent Regulus, who Tappei describes in a way that focuses on things you can't really put across in a still drawing, like Pandora being unimaginably beautiful with a perfection that would shame the gods, and Regulus being almost supernaturally ordinary and forgettable. With Vincent, his commanding aura and overwhelming air of dominance is hard to capture when he's just sitting there with nobody reacting to him. He could have been drawn to look more intense and intimidating in his pose and facial expression, but that would fail to carry over the fact that in this novel at least, he's going to come across as a lot more quirky and actually fun than that would imply. And he's not going to be an antagonist for Subaru in this part of the story. I kind of get why it does feel like he looks like just another light novel prince archetype here, but I also think it works better to have him looking this way than a darker, more imposing representation of him, at least for this cover. It's also worth considering whether Vincent being on the cover spoils the reveal about the masked man. And although it certainly makes it way more obvious than it was when we were reading the web novel with no art, and wondering whether that was going to be the case, I guess that's another reason why he was drawn on the throne like this, rather than in the way he actually appears in the novel. I think maybe if the idea was not to spoil that, a cover with just the people of Sudrak would have been cool, and then Vincent for volume 27. But from a biased perspective of someone who already knows the reveal from the web novel, I still prefer him being here on the first volume of the arc, because nothing says we're in Valacchia now like Vinny looking down on us from the very first image we see. But enough of me simping on about Vincent, because we also have the first look at two brand new characters here, and these are Mizelda and Uta Carter. Uta Carter looks cute and cheeky, which is how she is in most of Subaru's interactions with her, but as with all of the ReZero danger lollies, it hits different when you imagine this adorable little scamp coming out of a burning forest covered in soot and murdering Subaru with a poison arrow. But Mizelda is a character I'm personally way more interested in, and I really like her design here. I like the way her tribal face paint has been downplayed, so it doesn't make her design look too busy, and doesn't overshadow her actual facial features and make it hard to see what she actually looks like. I was expecting her hair to be all red, because unlike Uta Carter, it wasn't really mentioned that it was only dyed in places, but I think this hairstyle design looks awesome, and also subtly tells us that she has black hair that's dyed red, rather than the naturally weird coloured hair we're used to seeing in people from Lagunica. As someone with dyed hair myself, because yes, my hair is actually the same as my avatar's hair, I do want to ask Tappei how the Sudrak are pre-lightening their black hair to then dye it to these different colours. I can buy that they'd use vegetable dyes made of natural stuff from their surroundings to achieve the colours, but even with my naturally blonde hair, I have to bleach it first to get the bright colours to show up. And I'm not sure how they're doing that, but I should probably just stop looking for hairdressing related plot holes. After all, it's a fantasy setting, so Tappei could just answer that they use the venom of a magic frog or something, and it would be fine. In any case, I digress. As well as cool hair, Mizelda also has the abs of insanity. She reminds me painfully that my gym hasn't been open for a year and that my abs are not insane at all. I think she may actually even give ripped Mikasa a run for her money. Mizelda knows that swole is the goal and size is the prize, and she's definitely familiar with the glorious House of Gains. I should probably stop here because eventually this is just going to devolve into me singing the Onegai Muscle song from the Dumbbell anime. Side chesto. In any case, this is how Mizelda and most of the Sudrak were described. They're supposed to be really athletic as a result of their hunting lifestyle, and I'm really glad this was included in Mizelda's design, rather than giving her the fit but less muscular look of other characters that we see the ab regions of, like Shaula and Capella. This is partly because it just makes sense and gives an impression of what her physical capabilities are, but also because I just think she looks badass. I have high hopes for Mizelda and her tribe for adding an interesting new faction to the story. In a lot of series, the introduction of a tribe of all-female Amazonian warriors would feel ridiculously cliché, but I feel like Tappei would only go with an idea that commonly done if he had somewhere interesting to go with it. And it means I could just update my Otto ships video to predict that Otto will simply get taken in by the Sudrak to eventually die happily of snoo snoo. Still, while I really do like the cover myself, I may have been on the internet for far too long, because I feel like probably if you showed this cover to someone with no idea of what was going on in the novel, and if they were of a woke sort of disposition, they may not respond well to the image of a white guy on the throne with a scantily clad woman of colour in tribal makeup standing behind him. I mean, when you know more about the characters and the dynamics between them in the novel, it doesn't really hit that way at all. But I can't help but think that if Anita Sarkeesian was still in any way relevant, she'd probably have some things to say about what the image looks like out of context. And while I would absolutely defend it if people did see it that way, I've got to admit that that dimension to it as a single image is there. I think that's really just the problem with making assumptions about something from the artwork or the surface level roles of the characters, and the people who end up doing that and ruling stuff out without ever finding out anything more about it, or considering that the author might have something interesting to do with the tropes, probably wrote off ReZero as a generic waifu harem power fantasy isekai from seeing a picture of Rem in 2016. So really, it's their loss. But what do you guys think of the new artwork? Let me know in the comments, and please consider subscribing if you're new to the channel, because I cover all things ReZero, including summaries of Arc 7 chapters as they're released, as well as analysis and theories about other anime, manga and light novels, including coverage of the final chapters of Attack on Titan. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.